Mosque is one of the most ancient mosques established in Cairo, the city that has since gained the nickname of the city of 1,000 minarets. And to be speaking more about Al-Azhar, about Islam in general, and about Ramadan in specific, I'm honored today to be having with me on Nile Cruise Dr. Hossam Eddin Allam, or Sheikh Hossam Eddin Allam, the researcher at Al-Azhar Supreme Council. Sheikh Hossam, thank you very much for being with us today on Nile Cruise.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, Sheikh Hossam, first of all, Ramadan Kareem, and welcome with us. Actually, thank you for your hospitality and hosting us here at Al-Azhar Mosque, this important and grand religious edifice. I'd like to ask you about the importance of Ramadan and the willpower.
First of all, thank you so much for having me, and you are most welcome to be here at the heart of the Blessed Al-Azhar Mosque. It's always a pleasure to be on Nile TV International, and particularly on Nile Cruise. Definitely, this is a question of a paramount importance, and when we speak of the wisdom or the rationale behind the fasting, we find that clearly in the Noble Quran, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Noble Quran, in the verse in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, the meaning of which is, O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may attain taqwa. So here in Arabic it's لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So we understand in the Arabic language that لَعَلَّ has the sense of hope. So it means hopefully, or so that you are more in a position to attain this quality, this characteristic of taqwa, which is a very important thing. And in the Arabic language, we understand that taqwa is derived from the term wiqaya, which literally means to have a protection, to have a safeguard, or to have an immunity against something. And in psychology, we understand that something that's very key to developing civilizations and developing positive habits and doing new, important, and constructive things in one's personal life is to have self-power. And the correlation for this is very obvious, and to provide more of a context here so that we can better appreciate the bigger picture, we clearly see that during fasting we are being trained to suppress our desires and also to boost and to enhance our self-control and our willpower, which in the simplest sense it means this energetic determination to be able to suppress, to control yourself with regard to things on the short term, so that you are more in a position to achieve objectives on the longer and on even the medium term. So this is the point here. During fasting, like I said, you are being trained. So it is safe to say that fasting is a training to boost our self-control and our willpower. So this is the point here. When it comes to the hours of fasting, and that's as long as the sun is in the sky or above us, we abstain from eating and drinking and marital relations between the spouses. So the point is, during the day hours, we train ourselves, because in psychology you understand that our self-power is almost like a muscle that we can train. As much as we go to the gym in order to train our physical body, it's also viable and possible to train our mental muscle of self-power. And here, this is where this concept of taqwa, because the question that now definitely makes sense is, if we are in a position and if we are able to control ourselves and to abstain from lawful things like eating and drinking during the day hours of Ramadan, so why is it we can't also abstain from unlawful things and lawful things during the day hours of fasting? And by extension, we are more in a position to abstain from unlawful things throughout the year. So this is the power of fasting. It is meant, and this is one of the supreme objectives, to train the self-control and the willpower of the human being.
Yes, what about the social values of fasting and the religious values of fasting in Ramadan as well?
Of course, they correlate and they are very relevant, the religious and the social ones. Definitely, when the human being abstains from food and drink, this makes them more in a position to feel for the impoverished people and those who are less privileged when it comes to water sources and food sources. So this makes the human being definitely more in a position to know what it feels like to be deprived from eating and drinking. Because if we are just for this limited number of hours, we abstain and we control ourselves not to eat and drink. Definitely, this cultivates and develops in us the ability to see what it's like and even to sense what it's like, and therefore this makes the heart and the mind more tender and more encouraged in order to extend the helping hand to the poor and the needy.
Well, how can we train our children on fasting so that it becomes part of their habit?
This is a very important thing. We know that fasting becomes obligatory on the Muslim when they reach the age of puberty. And definitely there are physical manifestations for this for boys and for girls. And the Muslim scholars said even if this is not obvious from these physical changes, it is by reaching the age of 15. So this is why in light of this, the Muslim scholars all said that it is recommended and it's advisable to train the children to fast. And this can be definitely a gradual process. So it can start when they are able to abstain from food and drink. So it can be just for a limited number of hours. So it could be not eat only while they can drink until Dhuhr, then they can abstain from eating and drinking. So it's a gradual process just meant to train them and to develop in them the ability to fast so that when they have to fast by reaching the age of puberty, they are able and they can easily undertake the fasting.
Sheikh Hossam, if we can speak about Al-Azhar as a mosque and as a university, how do you think it gained the importance of it throughout the Egyptian history and the Islamic history as well?
Yes, definitely. If we look into the history and all over the 1,000 years and even more that Al-Azhar has always been there. Locally, Al-Azhar has always been sought for the liberation of Egypt, and we could see what happened during the French campaign and the English occupation and how all the revolutions started here from Al-Azhar, and imams and sheikhs and scholars from Al-Azhar were on the head of these revolutions, and not only when it comes to the context of Egypt, but locally and regionally as well, and globally. We see how many leaders, they graduated from Al-Azhar here, and when they go back to their countries, they play a vital and crucial role to the progress and to the advancement of their communities and their societies. The Grand Imam of Al-Azhar has just returned from a trip to Asia that included Indonesia, Singapore, and the Sultanate of Brunei, and we could see all how he was warmly greeted and welcomed by all the common people there, for example, in Indonesia, and the heads of states and the high-level officials. So this is Al-Azhar, and this is the value of Al-Azhar in the hearts of not only Egyptians and Muslims and even non-Muslims. We could see from the visits of the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar when he has been to Portuguese, when he went to Germany and the Vatican. All the world recognizes and views Al-Azhar as a trustable and trustworthy learning center for Islam. Like I said, not only for Muslims, but also non-Muslims here. Here at Al-Azhar Mosque, when I teach Islamic studies in English, I have both Muslims and non-Muslims studying at the same time. Anyone can have or ask or raise any question that they may have. They can freely express their mind, whatever question that they may have. So we don't even have a segregation like classes for Muslims only, while others are for non-Muslims. They can be together at the same time, and any question is most welcome. So this is Al-Azhar when it comes to its plurality, when it comes to the diversity of opinions, and of course everyone is most welcome. And this is why Al-Azhar has always been extending its hands and opening its door for the cooperation that's necessary for the best and for the interest of all human beings.
Speaking about the diversity of the students attending at Al-Azhar University, Al-Azhar is paying great attention to our African dimension, and I understand that actually there are a lot of students attending Al-Azhar University from different African countries. So would you
Yeah.
tell us more about that, please?
Yeah, definitely. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of students from all over Africa, and not only from Africa, like I mentioned, but from all over the 130 countries. We have students who come to study here at Al-Azhar, and Al-Azhar regularly offers scholarships for all of them, and also to be hosted at Al-Azhar's International Student City. And like I said, they are all most welcome, and they can not only join the university, but also at Al-Azhar Mosque here. We have Al-Azhar Riwaq project, which also offers its educational services to all people from all walks of life. It is not necessary that they have to be enrolled within another university, but whatever their work or their background, they are most welcome to join Al-Azhar here, and it's totally for free.
Throughout the history of Al-Azhar, which is more about 1,000 years, when do you think Al-Azhar reached its peak in terms of being a beacon of enlightenment to the Egyptians and to the Muslims in the world?
This is a very important question, and I do think that with the passage of time, Al-Azhar gains more importance, and the vital role of Al-Azhar gains momentum also with all of the challenges that the Muslims face and when it comes to Islam. So for example, when we see the unpleasant or the sad reality, to put it more clearly, of how it sometimes there are attempts to associate Islam and Muslims with certain stereotypes when it comes to violence or things like this. Definitely here Al-Azhar comes in with its history, with its academic approach, with its glorious contributions to humanity, and not only to the Muslim population. So Al-Azhar comes and says, this is Islamic and this is not. And this is what I always think to be very significant for all Muslims across the globe, that we have an institution that's over 1,000 years old. So this institution has always been there to disseminate any doubts of cloud, and to impart and to share the correct and the authentic knowledge of Islam in light of well-established, rigorous, well-accepted academic methodology. And I'm referring here to the manhaj of Al-Azhar that all the Muslim Ummah have accepted all over the centuries, and it is this approach that has been graduating tons of thousands of students who have been working and vitally playing the role of being religious leaders, of being muftis, who bring about peace, who bring about harmony, who bring about reconciliation when it comes to their communities wherever they graduate. And I have been myself to many countries around the globe, and I have seen many graduates of Al-Azhar being actively engaged in their communities and their societies in all levels and in all human interests and all human fields.
But actually, the role of Al-Azhar extends beyond the spiritual guidance. Also, the University of Al-Azhar, it has faculties of all genres, yes, where you can study any civil, yes, topic in addition, yeah, to the Islamic Sharia. And definitely, that's very important as well, yes, don't you think, Doctor?
Yes, of course, and for both men and women, we alongside the faculties of Sharia and law, Arabic language, Usul al-Din or theology, we have the faculty of engineering, we have the faculty of medicine, pharmacy, dentistry, all of them, and they are open for both men and women. And this is why I always say that at Al-Azhar we have university professors who are women, and they are the deans of their faculties. And now we have Al-Azhar Global Center for Fatwa and for the observatory and for translation, and you can find there both men and women working together to advance and to promote the moderate message of Al-Azhar, which is a clear translation and embodiment of the message of Islam, as the Prophet ﷺ has clearly stated that إِنَّمَا أَنَا رَحْمَةٌ مُهْدَى, that's definitely I am a gifted mercy. And clearly we read in the Noble Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, that we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a mercy to the whole world. This is the message of Al-Azhar, and this is the message of all the graduates also of Al-Azhar.
Yes, Sheikh Hossam Eddin Allam, the researcher at Al-Azhar Supreme Council, thank you very much for being with us today on Nile Cruise.
Thank you so much for having me, and Ramadan Kareem to all of you and to all the family of Nile TV International and all our dear respected viewers.
Allahu Akram, thank you.
And this brings us to the end of this part of Nile Cruise. We'll be taking a quick break and we'll be returning once again to you on Nile Cruise.